Hey guys, just getting out here in the shop this morning, so going to do a little work on the quarter scale. So I thought you guys might want to come along, see what all I got going on today. Also got a new segment coming up in this show. We'll see how that goes. You guys let me know what you think of that. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. Thanks. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be removing this mounting plate that holds my servos and my steering rack. I'm going to be taking this steering rack apart and cleaning and lubricating the bearings. This is a 4-bearing steering rack. So I'm going to take all this out. This all comes out on this car as an assembly. There's 3 little bolts down here that hold it all together. You can see that I've already disconnected my servo wires from my receiver. And since I've already got the suspension and the linkages and everything off, I've got the tie rods that would be tied on here, bolted on there. I've already got those off. So I'm going to go ahead and get that taken off and put up on the bench, and then we'll get into getting it cleaned. Well, I got it off the car. Everything went fine. Had those 3 little bolts that I had to take off. So I took those off. Now I've already got the steering linkages and the disconnected from it. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to remove the bolts out of this bar so that I can clean and lubricate the bearings inside it. There's a lot of different types of these slider racks. There's some out there that don't have any bearings in them. There's some that are 2 bearings, and there's some that are 4 bearings. This one happens to be a 4-bearing rack. So you want it to be smooth. I can feel a little bit of roughness there in the bearings. Probably got a little dirt, a little grit in there. So I'm going to take these bolts out to take this rack off. Real quick here, just my Allen wrench and a ratchet. Now, as I take parts off, I always like to lay them out in order. That way I don't make any mistakes, hopefully going back together. So what I've taken off already on this one is I had a plastic washer that goes up against that bearing and the nut that goes on the bolt. So you can see, hopefully you can see that there is a little bearing inside that slot. So I'm going to take that bearing out. So that's the little bearing that's in there. Take that bearing out, and I'm lining it up in order. Then I'm going to take the bolt out the rest of the way out. Now there is another bearing in the back inside between the slider and this plate that I will be able to get out once I take the other bolt out. So let me go ahead and get it off. Coming right along. So the same way, on this side I've got a locking nut, a plastic washer, my workbench is kind of a mess right now. Some guys have talked me into getting one of my 10th scale cars ready to maybe try doing a little off-roading in a couple weeks. So I started working on it the other day, so my workbench is kind of a mess. So here's the other bearing for that top side. So both of those bearings that I've taken out are on the top side of this. So now I can take my bolts the rest of the way out. They just unthread from the plate on this Vision car. Take my slider off. And then just like on the top, but only on the back side, there's another bearing and another plastic washer. And this plastic washer on the back side goes up against the metal plate. Then the bearing fits inside this slider. Now, you can see, let me grab a rag real quick here. You can see in this slider, there's a little bit of dirt in there, and these bearings are kind of dirty. So I'm just going to clean those up real quick. Now, what I like to use to clean bearings and things, and I know everybody has their own favorite that they like to use. I like to use CRC Brake Clean. You can get that at any parts store pretty much. But the thing about the CRC one that I like better is it doesn't leave any kind of film. Now, most brake cleaner isn't supposed to leave any kind of film. Carburetor cleaner, if you use it, sometimes it can be a little more harsh and it can leave behind a little film. But this CRC brake cleaner, I think, does a better job, and it's pretty high pressure coming out, so it helps to blast the bearings. So I'm just going to blast inside this bearing and make sure that all the brake cleaner that's coming out of it, as it's coming out, clears up and isn't black anymore. So I've got that pretty well sprayed out. I just wipe it down. I like to let them air dry a little bit. This brake cleaner dries pretty quick. So once I dry them, I kind of put it on the tip of my finger and just kind of roll it around to see if I feel any rough spots or anything. This one I don't. It feels really good. Of course, this bearing, this slider rack assembly I've only had on for one race. So, and that was the 125 lapper at Ingles that we ran last month. So now that I've got the bearing clean, I'm going to need to lubricate it. So what I've got here is, it's called Ultimate PTFE. It's from WCM. They sell it on their website. That's where I got this one from. So now, one thing that I learned years ago, whenever I used to work on fishing reels a lot, when you are lubricating bearings, you don't want to fill the bearing up. You don't want to pack it so full that the balls are actually pushing the lubricant around, because that slows it down. So what I like to do is I just put one drop. Let me see if I can get to where you can see it. One drop just right there in the bearing. And then just put it back on my finger and just kind of roll it around a little bit. Get that lubricant back in. And it's done. That bearing's ready to go. So this is where I had the bearings and the spacers and nuts and everything laid out in order. These two are the ones that go on first. So I'll show you real quick how I start putting it back together. So these two bolts right here, this one and this one, are the ones that it mounts upon. So I will be putting the washer on first. Then the bearing. Then the slider rack will go on. Then the other bearings will go on top like that. Then the washer, and then the nut will go on. Now, when you tighten this top nut down, you don't want to crank it down all the way tight, because that will cause it to bind up. So you just want to go snug with it and then maybe back it off about a quarter turn. You don't want any play in the bearing, in the rack, but you want it to be, you don't want it to be so tight that it locks up on you. So we got the rack and everything assembled, all back together, nice and smooth. The bearings and everything are working real smooth. So now that we've got that complete, we're going to bolt it back into the car. We're going to use these three holes here, and the bolts that I took out earlier. Go through those and bolt to these little tabs, these three holes on the car. So it bolts in as an assembly. Now, one thing I will say, whenever you put bolts in your chassis, bolt things onto your car, make sure that you use blue Loctite, not the red. The red is for things that you don't necessarily want to take back off at a later date, but the blue Loctite, I think Chris Hogue told me one time when I first started, you needed to pretty much dip the car in Loctite. And believe me, I've had race days where if there was one bolt on the car that I forgot to put Loctite on, I sure found it pretty quick. With things, these cars vibrate a lot, and bolts can vibrate, loosen up, back out. So make sure you use the blue Loctite, and you'll be glad you did, believe me. So that's all the assembly work that cleaning work that we're getting done today. And stay tuned. I've got a new segment coming up, and we'll get to that right now. Okay, guys, this next segment here, I'm wanting to do each video. I'd like to highlight a manufacturer or a supplier or maybe just somebody in the quarter scale business. Just kind of give you a little information about what they do and who they are. So the one for this week is a supplier, Doug McCallum. And Doug is a Bullseye and Lightning dealer. And he also carries a lot of other parts besides just for Bullseye and Lightning cars. I know I've contacted him in the past whenever I was having trouble finding a few things. And he got them to me within 2 days. So it was great shipping, great service. He also has a trailer that he carries a lot of parts and stuff in when he goes to races. So when you're at the races and you see him there, you need something, be sure and look him up. It's always good to have somebody at the track with some parts whenever you break something and you need it real quick. So I know that Doug told me that he has gotten some more material in. He's going to be making some more bumper channels and bumper foam. So if you need some of those to get your car going for the next spring, some new ones, be sure and give Doug a call. You can see on his card there that he said he does quarter scale and 10th scale repairs and even remote repairs. So if you have problems with a radio or something, you need some repairs on, give him a call. I'm sure he can be able to get you fixed up. So got any parts you need, give Doug a call, and I'm sure he'll get you lined up. Thanks a lot. Well, guys, that pretty much does it for this episode. I just wanted to take a minute real quick. Thanksgiving's coming up real close. Take a few minutes, give thanks for everything that we have to be thankful for. I know a lot of things that I have to be thankful for, but one thing that I wanted to mention here is all of you guys. I'm thankful for all of you guys and for this hobby and being able to get together and play with these toy cars and all the help that I've received over the years from the guys, all the laughs that we've had, all the camaraderie. I'm really thankful for that. And I owe that all to you guys. So take a few minutes over the course of the next couple of days and be sure and give thanks for what we have. And I really hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Eat lots of turkey. Watch a little football. Probably take a nap or two. So until next time, you guys keep your finger on the trigger and keep racing.